An entitled mother yells at my friend because she couldn't win an escape room. I used to work at an escape room, and on Thursday evening, just after Christmas holiday, I had a late shift with two colleagues, Jess and Darling. Jess is a 17-year-old girl, Darling is a 16-year-old male, and rather small and thin for his age. We've known each other before we started working together, and I've even helped them get the job. Part of my job is to know how to handle customers, particularly difficult ones. Despite this though, me and my colleagues weren't exactly confrontational. Darling struggled with social anxiety and depression, and I am non-confrontational and struggle with mild autism, and Jess was very, very shy. We weren't exactly the most threatening people, but opposite to Darling, I am quite large and burly. I'm in no way a bodybuilder, quite the opposite in fact, and many adults tower over me. But if I suck in my gut properly, I can come off as quite muscular. Anyway, we were working together and it was quite an easy night. I had problems with my leg from a surgery I had years ago, so I stayed in the control room most of the evening, occasionally guiding a few people into the bigger rooms. This group comes in quite late in the evening, and she has booked one of our more thrilling rooms. It has creepy background noises, takes place in a prison, and most of the room is dark. In fact, one of the portions is completely pitch black. Usually this would be fine if it wasn't for the fact that she had two kids ages 8 and 13. Now, this wasn't my first run-in with this lady, so I had an unnerving feeling of what I was getting into. Seeing this lady and her kids in the hallway, I asked, to be sure, which room they booked, and she said in a snarky tone, as an employee at this establishment, you should know exactly which room we booked at what time. We have been waiting for 15 minutes. When you book a room, we ask you to arrive 15 minutes early as to avoid people coming in late. I say, I apologize, I just wanted to make sure, as you booked the prison break, but the room isn't fit for kids, and it's advertised as an adult room. She says, well, you should have been specific. I know for a fact that my babies can handle it. They are big, strong boys, aren't they? And she pinched her son's cheeks as she said that. I said, as long as you're sure, because we are not accountable for any emotional discomfort you or your kids may come upon in that room. Don't say I didn't warn you. After that encounter, my coworker Darling took them into the room. During the explanation, Darling noticed physical discomfort on the faces of the kids. They were nervous, and the lights flickering as the room progressed didn't help. Eventually, we heard the 8-year-old boy cry through the walls. They were thin walls, mind you. And the mother loudly telling them to man up. Once their time was up and they couldn't get out, she berated Darling about the room and how it was too scary and way too hard, and how we should have warned them and such. Darling was getting insecure and panicked and was about to go into a full-blown panic attack. My other coworker wasn't feeling too comfortable about the situation either, so I stepped up and took over. I said, Darling, go back to the office with Jess. As she goes back, I look at this lady and I say, ma'am, please refrain from yelling at my colleagues, as that is not appropriate here. She starts shouting, well, you should have warned us that it was going to be scary and impossible. I responded, ma'am, if you cannot have a mature conversation about this, and in fact will continue to scream, I must ask you to leave the premises at once. She ends up saying, don't you dare say that. I want to speak to someone in charge. I end up saying, listen, our manager isn't in right now, so as far as I'm concerned, I'm in charge. Now, I'm going to ask you one more time to calm down and refrain from screaming at me. This ticked her off even more. She was absolutely enraged. She proceeds to slap me in the face and say, you young man, do not get to talk to me like that. Now I want to speak to the manager because you're going to lose your job. I stop her and say, listen, lady, you do not have to physically assault me because you couldn't finish a room. I warned you from the start that this was a scary room. Now I must once more ask you to leave before I call someone to make you leave by force. She looked like she wanted to slap me again, but didn't. She eventually backed down and left in a huff, spouting about how my boss was going to hear about this. I didn't know who I was messing with, and I was going to lose my job, allegedly. Joke's on her, I worked there for almost a year after that whole situation. This entire situation is absolutely craziness. This lady slaps this guy over an escape room that she couldn't get through, let alone bring her kids through at that. How this kind of person hasn't been banned already and prevented from coming into this establishment is beyond me. The original poster even says that they recognized them when they came into the escape room. I mean, how do you let someone in like that who's gonna act like that? Overall, if it was me, the second that lady would have hit me, I would have immediately called the police. Nobody should be physically assaulted over just trying to do your job.
The full version of this video is actually going to be on the Am I the Jerk YouTube channel, so check out the link in the description for it. And if there are any updates to this story, that's where they'll be, in the same link. And separately, if you guys use Instagram, make sure to follow at AmITheJerk on Instagram to see the text form of a lot of these stories that you guys submit, along with some of these short form videos. The Instagram is actually a really good way to catch up on stories when you can't listen to anything, like if you're at work or school and you can't have headphones in. So anyway, check out Am I the Jerk and Am I the Genius on Instagram.